All right, it's 7:30, so we're going to get started here. Welcome to the Gazelle School of Business webinar on retiring and selling your piano service business. This is one of many free webinars we're offering to the piano service industry that'll cover every topic you can imagine related to building and running a piano service business. Now, Luke's going to be monitoring the Q&A chat below, so ask your questions there, and we'll try to answer as many as we can at the end. Let's dive right in. Most piano technicians wait too long to think about selling their business, which is why we far too often get asked to purchase a box of index cards from the family of a deceased colleague. Now, not everyone is going to wait this long, but most people think they can quickly prepare their business to sell and find a buyer near the end of their career. And in the real world, there's a word for a business that sells this quickly: cheap. Today I'm here with Timothy Barnes, a registered piano technician and the co-founder of Gazelle. Timothy's been involved in more piano service business sales and transitions than probably anyone in the entire industry. Now, increasingly, he's being asked to personally evaluate deals and advise people on both sides of the business buying and selling process. And as your personal business coach at Gazelle, I can tell you that we're seeing more and more technicians asking questions about this topic, which is why we put this webinar at the top of our list. It's really easy to successfully retire and sell a business if you do the right things. Now, most piano technicians just don't think through everything until it's too late. But getting traction is easy if you pick a retirement date, organize your data, and plan a retirement party.
But it's really important to notice what George didn't say. He didn't say find a buyer. Now, finding a buyer is really important. You can't sell your business if you don't find a buyer. But the truth is, the buyers will come if you do all the right things. And I say buyers, plural, because with enough time and the right approach, you can get multiple offers. But the buyers will never come if you are not intentional and don't do good planning. Yeah. So we're going to talk about what needs to happen for you to successfully retire and sell your business.
But before we do that, I want to speak quick to the buyers who are watching this webinar. So if someone ever tries to entice you to buy their business by saying, I want to sell my business when I retire, do yourself a favor. Smile and tell them to call you once they have an actual date in mind. And if someone doesn't have their retirement party already being planned, odds are you're both going to waste your time. Now, if someone comes to you and says, I'm ready to sell my business as soon as I find the right buyer, well, that's a whole different story.
The first topic that we're going to discuss is, what are you selling? A list of past clients is a resume, not a business. Now, many of you are probably thinking, yeah, well, I plan to also send a letter to all of my customers recommending the new owner, but sadly, this isn't enough to add significant value to the deal. The truth is, preparing clients for the sale of your company takes a lot of intentional planning. If you don't do anything until the last minute, then the value of your entire client list is probably not more than $1,000 or a small commission on the next service call. A business, on the other hand, is more than a contact list, and it is certainly more than a strong personal relationship with your core customers. It is a combination of tangible and intangible elements that buyers are going to value differently than you do. Let me say that again. Buyers are going to value your business differently than you. So that makes valuing a client relationship-driven business an even harder task to achieve.
Hard assets are tangible things you can see and touch and feel. It's property the business owns, like tools, land, buildings, cars. If you can touch it, if you can value it, and then put it up for sale the day after you buy the business, it's a hard asset. The IRS likes to call these things tangible assets. Anything that can be easily valued and sold to anyone the day after the deal closes. Now, valuing hard assets is super easy. How much would it cost to go out and buy this thing new? That's the most you should pay for it. How much could the buyer sell it for today if you don't buy it? Well, that's the price you should try to negotiate towards. And depending on how patient your seller is, you'll probably end up paying an amount between those two numbers. Soft assets are things where the value isn't readily obvious or the value changes from one buyer to another. So client data and relationships are a great example. The hard asset's the value of the data on your client cards. The soft asset is the trust that you've built with the clients, the way you've conditioned them to pre-schedule all their appointments, the way you've conditioned them to wait for you to recommend a trustworthy replacement, and possibly even the mix of active residential and institutional customers you have in your database. Clients are often considered soft assets because the value of the relationship is what we're interested in over and above everything else.
Human resources are an often overlooked part of a piano service business because many of us don't have office staff. But if you do, consider asking your employees to stay on for a minimum of X number of months after the sale. As the owner, you can even add value to your business by offering to work with the new owner for a period of time. By doing this, you're providing human resources to the new business owner, which means they don't need to do as much to keep things running smoothly during the transition. No hiring cost, no training costs, and allowing them to hit the ground running is really important. That has value, and more importantly, that adds value to your business.
The next thing we're going to discuss is understanding buyers. You will never get the same offer from multiple people. So freelancers value businesses differently than other types of buyers. A freelancer is someone who never intends to hire someone else. They plan to buy your business and do all the work themselves. These types of people are going to want a clean break from you. And in most cases, they actually don't need all of your business, just some of it. So their price is going to reflect the parts of it that they see value in. For instance, they might see value in combining your best clients with their best clients so that they never have to touch a spinet piano again. You'll know when someone's doing this because the buyer is probably going to ask you if you would consider only selling your best clients, or they're going to significantly undervalue the portion of your database they're not interested in. This means that their final offer is going to be significantly less than you think all these clients are worth. And you shouldn't be offended by this kind of offer because the buyer is simply telling you what kind of buyer they are. Business owners are going to behave very differently than a freelancer. A business owner is someone who doesn't intend to do all the work because they plan to hire as many people as needed. Now, a business owner is also going to balance the total value of all your hard assets and soft assets. And then they're going to add in the value created from the ongoing concern of your company or brand. Ongoing concern is a special kind of intangible asset, and we're going to discuss it in more detail later when we talk about a formula for valuing your business.
A third type of buyer is somebody who is looking to buy a business because they are relocating to your area. Think of someone who has a thriving business in one state, but whose grandkids live in your city. They might be thinking about selling their existing business and buying yours as a way to be closer to their grandkids. They are more interested in walking into a great client base than they are spinning up a business from nothing. A fourth type of buyer emerges if you have an employee or apprentice who is looking to buy your business. Now, this is the hardest kind of sale to pull off, but it is also the most often cited tactic touted by a piano technician who's looking to retire. Oh, no worries, I'm just going to go train my replacement. Well, the truth is, yes, you are going to train your replacement, but no, they are not going to buy your business, at least not for very much. The only way you get a fair price from an employee is, one, if you have an agreement signed years in advance, and ideally before you train them. Two, if you have multiple offers on the table. Or three, they are full of integrity and use the intimate knowledge they have of your clients to do a fair valuation. But in the absence of the first two scenarios, that last scenario almost never plays out because the employee eventually says something like this. I don't want to buy your business because honestly, once you retire, I'm just going to pick all the good clients off the floor. Right? A lot of people fear that this is going to happen if they give an employee access to any amount of their client data. But the truth is, it happens because you didn't have compelling alternatives in place.
Remember, people have different motivations for wanting to buy your business. If you understand their motivation, you can predict with a high level of accuracy how they're going to value your business, which helps you qualify your prospects without wasting too much time with dead-end leads. So let's talk about buyer motivations and then how to qualify a prospect. All right, so the first buyer motivation is hunger. This is often the worst kind of buyer because they're unreliable. A hungry buyer is a first-time business owner or a poor business owner. If someone's interested in buying your business because they don't have enough work to feed their family, you need to ask yourself if they're qualified to manage your business as well.
A focused buyer is the type of person who has probably been very intentional in pursuing you as a seller, courting you long before you knew you were being courted. And they are probably your most qualified type of buyer. They are also your best lead because they already have a strong vested interest specifically in your business, which means they are probably willing to pay a premium above what others pay. Now, paying a premium for a good business isn't always a bad idea. But if you are a buyer who is angling for a deal using this strategy, be careful because you are probably too emotionally invested to negotiate well. So only do this if there is a win-win situation. Otherwise, one of you needs to walk away.
Discouraged buyers are out there, and identifying them is important. You see, a discouraged buyer probably sounds like someone who is struggling to get traction in their own business, so they're exploring other options, including buying your business. The problem with this type of buyer is that they're often flaky. They're just as likely to jump career tracks as they are to stick with piano service, and they're going to take you on a roller coaster ride as a seller. So only entertain this type of buyer if you have no other options, and even then consider it might be more valuable just shut down your business and not waste any time. Now, okay, there's one caveat here, and sometimes all a discouraged buyer needs is a little hope. And the opportunity to purchase your business might be the win they need in their sales. So toss that in for free. If this is the case, you're going to see a disorganized, discouraged buyer quickly pivot and become an organized, focused prospect because you threw in hope. Now you've created a better buyer for yourself.
Now, dreamy-eyed buyers are usually a young kid. And I'm using the term young loosely here, right? This could just as easily be an immature business owner. Now, these types of buyers speak first and think later. So usually they will get you all excited that you have a deal only to hesitate when it comes time to sign the paperwork. And that's when they start asking a lot of hard and very important questions, or they completely back out of a signed deal because they can't uphold their end of the bargain. Now, a buyer who doesn't do their due diligence on the front end is a weak prospect. And you should think twice before walking down the aisle with them. They are the kind of prospect who is likely to leave you at the altar over some weak sauce excuse like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't think about this and this and this before I agreed to buy your business. Meanwhile, you're left holding the bag because you've lost precious time that could have been spent courting better prospects.
So lastly, there are the obituary hunters. And sadly, these people do exist. A few years ago, I managed the estate of my mother, and I kid you not, I had people calling me up as the next of kin offering to buy her house today. And I could tell you they were just reading the local obituary and Googling me as her next of kin. So if you do nothing, then you're going to leave your family to handle these decisions. And I can assure you, the offers they get are going to be about as good as the all cash close today offers I got from my mother's house.
Now, no matter what kind of buyer you're dealing with, remember this: hope is not currency. Selling a business is ultimately a transactional ordeal. And depending on the type of buyer you're dealing with, it will feel personal because your business means something to you. And doing this deal should also mean something to them. But it should also feel a little cold, a little impersonal, and a little bit like a transaction. Now, qualifying buyers and sellers is transactional, and you need to do this to avoid wasting precious time. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about with qualifying buyers, we're going to talk about financing because we are not giving a business away, we are selling it. There will be real money involved. So knowing your prospect has financial backing and can actually stand behind their promise is essential. Now, there are basically 3 different ways that we're going to fund a business deal. The first is with cash. And this is often the lowest price, lowest hassle offer that will be on the table. The second way that we're going to fund a business deal is with bank financing. Now, whether this is an SBA loan or a traditional loan, a HELOC, or the buyer's personal line of credit, if a bank is involved, expect there to be a lot of paperwork on your part as well as the buyer's. And keep this in mind. To get financing, the buyer needs to show that the total value of the business is a multiple of the purchase price, or the bank is going to turn down their application for the loan. And so this means the buyer's bank is going to be working against your best interest as a seller as they advise their client how to qualify for financing. So keep that in mind if the buyer is going to be working with a bank. Typically, it's best if you require the buyer to go ahead and have all the financing secured. That way, you're not having to actually finagle the other side of the equation. You just kind of know, okay, you're already pre-qualified. Now, owner financing is the third and final way that you are going to fund a business purchase. And this is often the best way to get the most out of your company. But it means you as the owner take some form of risk and receive payments over time. And remember, you can always do a mix of the 3 different options. So maybe you do some cash today plus some owner financing, and that's the way you end up structuring your deal. But regardless, you need to qualify your buyer to make sure they have the financial backing necessary to close their end of the bargain.
Transition timeline. There needs to be something in writing, signed, and ideally reviewed by a lawyer on both sides, especially if there's a large sum of money involved. But your agreement to purchase is worthless if you don't also have an agreed upon transition timeline that predates the sale. This could simply be something as simple as, I promise to buy your business on X date at X value, provided the following 3 things have occurred. Now, having tangible, measurable milestones is a safety net for both parties, especially if the other isn't holding up their end of the deal. So keep in mind, if a deal falls through at the last minute, the seller has more to lose than the buyer. The moment milestones aren't met, then you can confidently walk away and pursue another buyer. But you never get to if you don't have a timeline to begin with. Integrity and work ethic. And this is 100% subjective, but it can be objectified if you do your homework and require references from the potential buyer. Nothing replaces quality time spent getting to know your prospects. Because let's be honest, if the person buying your business doesn't share your integrity and work ethic, do you really want to trust him to carry on your name and legacy? So qualifying these buyers can be as simple as asking a few questions. Does this individual care about people as much as I do? Does this individual set their internal bar as high as I do? Would I hire this person to work on my piano? Would I recommend this person to one of my best clients if I couldn't fit them in my schedule fast enough? Lastly, we need to talk about the possibility of selling your business to someone who isn't as good a technician as you are. Let's be honest. You've spent decades honing your craft. Anyone who has done the same is probably ready to retire themselves or isn't in need of work. They probably are not looking to buy your business. So what do you do with people who are not as skilled as you are? Well, either you're okay with selling to someone who's not as experienced as you, or you need to make a plan to address that concern. Does it matter to you? If it does, you need to deal with it. Because to do that, you need to ask a few critical questions to help qualify them as a potential buyer. Are they aware of their skill gap? What are they currently doing to plug it? How fast do they assimilate new information and skills? Maybe after the purchase agreement is signed, you get paid to mentor them. Do they even care? Are there other people who they could hire to do X, Y, Z skills until they're able to master it on their own?
So how do you find a buyer? To be honest, talk to the team at Gazelle. Unlike anybody in the industry, we are becoming a bit of a clearinghouse for buyers and sellers. We're helping hundreds of young piano technicians spin up their business all over the world, while at the same time helping hundreds and hundreds of seasoned technicians prepare for their end game. If you tell us what kind of business you have to sell and what kind of buyer you're looking for, there's probably a really good chance we might know somebody or a few people who are looking for the right opportunity.
So, green technicians. Let's talk about newly minted techs. Oftentimes, guys, I'm sorry, these are not qualified buyers. Now remember what we said about motivations. These are often hungry and dreamy-eyed buyers. Most have a skill gap that will require mentorship. So if you want to find a buyer, rather than looking to fresh graduates of a program, you might be better off going back 5 to 10 years and calling up all of their alumni. But wait, you might ask, I was going to hire and then grow my own buyer. Having a business to sell does not automatically make you a great teacher. Quite the opposite. It usually stresses everybody involved because you have a timeline and expectations that frankly might not be realistic. If you've never taught or mentored someone in the past, doing so now just to sell your business is a horrible idea. Don't do it. A better approach is to connect these people with someone who is a good mentor and then tell them, listen, once you can do X and Y and Z, call me and see if I found a buyer. But don't fool yourself into taking them on as a student who you hope will turn into a prospect to buy your business. That's a bad idea. Now, transplants and life transition folks are great prospects, and they're really hard to find. So if you live in Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, Arizona, Hawaii, anywhere else people dream about living, then finding a transplant is super easy. You just watch the news, you wait till a blizzard hits in January or February, and you call up every piano technician in the snow-capped states and you say, seriously guys, why are you torturing yourself? Stop the madness. Come buy my business. I am ready to retire. But that life transition group is a little hard to find. The life transition people, these are the people whose life circumstances are compelling them to relocate to a specific part of the country. Usually grandkids are involved, but this could also sadly be due to a divorce or someone looking to turn over a new leaf or things like that. So regardless, you just need to put the word out. Anyone interested in moving to XYZ location, I have a business. I'm looking to sell as soon as I find the right buyer. And notice the choice of words I used right there. As soon as I find the right buyer. Don't tell them you're looking to retire at X date. That just causes the obituary hunters to start circling. You want to send the message, I have this market locked up and I'm not going anywhere until I find the right buyer.
Now, most piano technicians come into the trade due to a midlife career change. And so this is another great place to find a buyer. Most of these people would have made a great piano technician years or decades ago, except nobody ever told them this is an amazing and lucrative career path that should be considered. So consider running an ad or emailing your client list and saying just that. And lastly, let's talk about apprenticeships. Building an apprenticeship program takes time and effort. It's not the kind of thing you need to do as your health is failing or as you are reaching the end of your career. The best teachers at all of the PTG conventions have a fire in their belly and a passion to make a difference in the lives of other people. So if you have a passion to help others, then by all means, start an apprenticeship program. But don't do it because you think you will sell your business to the first person you train. The truth is, you probably will sell it to the 5th, 6th, or even maybe 10th person that you train. We have an entire webinar planned on how to build an apprenticeship program, so that's all we're going to say about this right now. But just keep that in mind, that if you are going to build an apprenticeship program, you're probably not going to sell it to the first person you train.
So the next question you need to consider is, how do I value my business? If you remember the beginning of this webinar, we said everyone is going to value your business differently. So that begs the question, how in the world do I approach this at all? Well, it's easier than you may think. But valuing an intangible asset is the easiest and hardest part of this entire process. First, you need to understand what's valuable. Next, you need to remember that all buyers value things differently. And then you need to look at everything you own, because easy to replace equals easy to value. If you can go out and buy the exact same thing, then I can easily assign a value to it.
And remember, everything is negotiable. So don't feel bad if you need to say, I'm sorry, that is just not a very good deal for me. Can we work out another deal, or do I need to pursue another buyer? Also, don't be offended if you find yourself on the other side of this coin as well. I'm aware of one business deal that couldn't close because the seller decided to spend a few more years preparing his business for sale so he could get a better offer. In the end, he did, and a new buyer emerged at the right time. In every situation, walking away from a deal that is bad for you is ultimately more of a win than agreeing to a bad business deal. Now, valuing a piano service business is best done using grade school math. Anything more complicated is probably needlessly complicated. So let's talk about this in terms of just basic multipliers. And we're going to look at the big picture numbers and apply a multiplier to different parts of the business. But before we do that, we need to talk about buyers, because they need to get a return on investment. Just like you need time to prepare your business for sale, once they buy the business, they need to start getting a return on that investment within a certain amount of time. The question is, how long is it going to take for the buyer to start reaping the rewards? Well, it's basic math. 10 years is probably too long for most business owners. So 3 years is really good. 5 years, that's a tough sell, because I can easily spin up my own book of business in about 5 years. So if I'm going to buy your business instead, you better have something more than just a client list to offer. But a 5x profit multiplier can be justified in some cases. And lastly, if your business is going to give me a 1-year ROI, let's do a deal. Right now, it's probably undervalued, or your business is so disorganized and I'm going to have to come in and just do a ton of work to start to recoup my cost, which means I can't just walk into the business and start making money at it. I have to actually do 6 or 9 months worth of work before I can start to recoup my investment. And so that's going to have the effect of lowering the valuation of the multiplier that we use. So keep this in mind as you negotiate a price with your buyer.
Profitability usually gets a 3 times multiplier applied as a starting point. But as Tim said, a disorganized business might only be worth 1 times the profit. Now, a 3 times valuation means it's going to take the buyer 3 years to recoup their investment using the profits generated from your business. Now, we have an entire webinar planned on running a profitable business. But the important thing here is that profit is all the money left after the technician takes a fair wage for their work. So after all business expenses, after the technician has been paid, how much money is left? So as a seller, this means you want to reduce all unnecessary expenses in the 3 to 5 years leading up to the sale of your company, so you can maximize the profit you show in your financial reports. Hard assets. Depending on the condition of your hard assets you're selling, you may get full price, or you may have already depreciated their value. Think of a service car your business owns that has 250,000 miles on it and it's falling apart. Sure, it's worth something, but the new owner is going to scrap it and use their own car.
Let's talk about soft assets. Don't use your soft assets to gain value. Now, hold on. Earlier, George gave that long list of, you need to list all the soft assets and you need to think about this and all of that. We're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail. But, if you use the soft assets to help justify a higher profitability valuation,
Right.
Think about it. If you have a great relationship with your clients, but your company is not profitable, your soft assets are not worth that much. But if you have a profitable company with a great client relationship with a ton of clients, or even a handful of clients who are eagerly awaiting your blessing on the new owner, well, all of a sudden, someone might be willing to pay more than 3x profit for your company because your soft assets have so much more value. So a strong soft asset valuation helps make the new owner feel like they are getting a better deal. But the valuation is determined by the profitability of the company and how long it is going to take them to get a return on investment, not necessarily the valuation of the soft asset. Ongoing concern. Let's talk about that for a minute. This is a special kind of soft asset that George mentioned earlier. And this is only something that the buyer can assess. So usually this is more valuable when you're selling to a larger company, and you're not going to know about it until the buyer tells you that they're interested in your business for some other reason. So for a freelancer, the ongoing concern of your company is any value the new owner receives from your name and your brand continuing to be out in the community. This is typically needed by the buyer to help further justify the profitability of the valuation, but it can also add a lot to your overall valuation formula in a couple of situations. And so one situation is if the buyer is buying your business so they can get all the best contracts, the best relationships, and referrals from the best musicians in the city, well, all of a sudden having the ongoing concern of your name perpetuating into the future a recommendation to this person, it's really valuable. It's more valuable than the actual client relationship, right? A second way the buyer is going to look at this and say ongoing concern and the future value of the company is better than it is today is they might be interested in buying your business because you have a service or a product they have been wanting to provide their customers. Think about a piano service business that also has a moving crew, or is also a piano distributor, or also has a shop or a retail store in a really great location. Right? The client relationship, the soft asset, might not be worth much to them, but the fact that you already have a moving crew, the equipment and the systems and people, human resources that they can bring into their business, now that is what they're interested in. And they're going to look at that and go, okay, well, he was doing like 90% of his revenue in tuning and 10% in moving. Well, I'm not really going to do that much in tuning, but I'm going to spin up a moving crew that is doing $500,000 a year in revenue. And that's why. So in that case, they're going to look at all the hard assets, soft assets, and they're going to be like, yeah, whatever. I'm actually interested in the ongoing concern of this very small part of your company that you're not utilizing right now. And so look at your business and see if that might be true. And then the third way a buyer is going to tell you that they are interested in the ongoing concern and future profitability of the company more than its present state is by buying your business. They are going to reduce the number of possible competitors in your area, right? I know this sounds just a little self-serving, but the reality is if somebody looks at your business and thinks, man, that is a great business and he's going to bring somebody else in, and if I don't lock those clients up, somebody else is going to enter the market, and I would prefer to have this market cornered. they might actually pay an extra multiplier on your business to have that be true. And lastly, they are going to tell you that they are interested in ongoing concerns subtly, just by the fact that they're going to look at it and say, well, I actually want to buy your business because this is part of a bigger picture. This is part of something larger that I'm building. And so maybe your business is just the foundation for building a much larger book of business than you were able to achieve in your area in the time you spent there. So the bottom line is this: profitability is key. The more consistently profitable your company is, the higher the valuation you will be able to achieve.
So another important question that needs to be asked is, how do I increase the value of my business? So remember, a list of people you've worked for is a resume, not a business. And data is money. The more data you have, the more organized you are, the more valuable your business is going to be to other people. So nobody wants to buy a shoebox of index cards for a lot of money. Good data is worth something, but not if it's hard to access.
The next thing you're going to need to do is to get organized. Now, Gazelle is the cheapest office assistant you will ever hire, and it comes with the side benefit of also making your business more valuable. Multiple times a year, our team picks up the phone and someone is selling their business to somebody else, who oftentimes is another Gazelle user looking to merge the two businesses into a single Gazelle account. Now, you might not be using Gazelle today, but the odds you're going to end up selling your business to somebody who is already using Gazelle is actually really high. And the other thing is that, you have to consider nobody wants to buy a dilapidated house, at least not to live in. If your business is not being managed well, it's not organized, it's not run very well, and it's not profitable, I think you get the picture. A business like this isn't worth much. If your business has major issues, then you need to spend some time fixing things before you put it on the market. And all of this takes time, which is why you need to give yourself as much time as possible. 3 to 5 years is usually a fair amount of time to get a business ready to sell. But depending on how much needs to be done, a shorter time horizon might be possible.
So list all soft assets. Now, this is a really important topic. So imagine being the buyer and hearing a seller say, yeah, I have all these tools over there that are probably worth $8,000, and my clients they like me, so I think you should buy my business. No. Instead, you need to list all the soft assets if you want to increase value. So you can think the buyer has something tangible that they can look at. You might say, listen, I have 3,000 clients and 3,500 pianos. Of these 350 clients, of those, the 350 clients are active, and they have their piano serviced twice a year. And 690 are active, and they have their piano serviced once a year. And I have so many 5-star online reviews at Google. I have a phone number I'm going to sell you. I have an email address. I'll be sending out 3 letters supporting you as the new owner. I'll also be offering to stay on if you want for up to 18 months to help with the transition. I own xyz.com domain, and it's paid for the next 8 years. You're going to list every possible soft asset you can imagine. List it, even if you're not sure, because it might be valuable to one buyer, but not another. But one thing's for sure. Being organized and listing all of these assets is going to cause the perceived value of your business to go up in the eyes of the buyer. Don't underestimate your soft assets. Finally, not finally, but hire an accountant today. To me, this is like finally, right? Because having an outside accountant manage your books for like 2 to 3 years leading up to the sale of a business is a must. I know you're capable of doing basic bookkeeping, right? But you're going to need to spend some time preparing your business to sell. That time doesn't appear out of nowhere. So hiring an accountant is going to shore up your company financials so that you can actually give prospective buyers accurate financial records. And it's also going to free you up to focus on more important things. So just do this now and thank me later. Having solid financials is going to help increase the perceived value of your business. And stop listening to your CPA. All right, I'm serious about this. Think about it. CPAs are supposed to do one thing: leverage every IRS loophole so that you qualify for reducing your taxable income. Now, on paper, a good CPA can take a profitable business and make it look less profitable so you owe fewer taxes to the government. That's their job. So the last 5 years of your tax returns should not be a baseline for valuation. Now, there's enough here to do an entire webinar. So if you have questions, you can just email our team at Gazelle, and we'll do what we can to help you evaluate whatever business you're trying to value.
The last topic that we need to recover is letting go. The moment you decide to sell is the moment that you need to start letting go.
If you're a buyer and your seller isn't letting go, walk away. Just imagine trying to buy a house where the owner is asking to be allowed to stick around, or trying to negotiate a price as you hear the owner telling the realtor, I don't know if I'm really ready to sell it all. If a seller isn't emotionally ready to let go, then you need to walk away. And if you aren't ready to let go, you need to stop telling people that you're selling. Now, letting go doesn't have to be instantaneous, though, right? The decision to let go needs to be firm, but the timing of letting go can and should vary from deal to deal. So we need to talk about when it's appropriate to slowly let go of the reins. If you're merging two businesses, then this process takes time and a lot of planning. And you'll probably continue running separate businesses for a period of time while the deal's being hammered out. So then you would both stay on and work together to merge the businesses. And perhaps the new owner hires you on as a contract worker. So to your clients, not much has changed, but legally you're now employed by the person who you sold your business to.
Now, if you are slowly winding down your career and that's your goal, then the best time to sell your business is about 2 years before you want to stop working. During this time, you can agree to continue working for the new owner, and then as you get closer to retirement, you can systematically and intentionally reduce your workload and service area until it is literally just 20 clients within 2 miles of your house. And the last 2 years of your career are absolute bliss. You get to work on pianos and focus on your best client relationships without all the pressure of running a business. And because the sale literally happened 2 years ago, by the time you retire, you can gracefully just step into retirement at the right time. All you have to do is just start reducing your workload, and voila, there you are. You throw a party, you have your date, you're ready to go. Now, another reason you might want to slowly let go is to help address a skill gap in the new owner. Remember, the idea that you can train someone and then ask them to buy your business is a broken model. Instead, ask them to buy your business and then train them. Now, you don't have to worry about them walking off with all of your clients because technically they are their clients now. They own them. They bought the business. You already did that deal, right? A buyer who is not serious is never going to take you up on this offer if you ask them to buy your business today and then I will train you. But a serious buyer will.
Okay, so let's talk about what to do if now is the appropriate time to cut ties and let go. For most of the people watching this webinar, if you're thinking of retiring in less than 2 years, the truth is you might not have time to do a slow transition. So finding a buyer who wants a clean break might be one of your only options. So if you find yourself in this kind of negotiation, then after you find your buyer, you want to do 2 things. First, plan 2 vacations, one tomorrow and one in 6 months. So think about it, right? The first vacation is probably a cruise, something to celebrate your retirement. But then you're going to get home and you're going to be hit with an identity crisis because you suddenly don't know what life is supposed to look like. Now, for most people, the first few years of retirement are the hardest because you have to establish a new normal, and it might look really different than you had anticipated. But by planning 2 vacations, one for as soon as you get home, you'll have something to look forward to. So you're going to keep doing this until you find your new normal. And don't look back. No matter what happened, whether you got the right price you wanted, the deal you wanted, or the person you sold it to ended up making a mess of things, it's not your problem. You made a deal, and now you're free to enjoy your life. What this person does with your form of business shouldn't own any part of your emotional well-being. And retain your happy list. You don't have to get rid of everything. So who are the clients that make you the happiest? Do you want to keep servicing their pianos into your retirement? Then plan to do so. Keep the customers you really want.
I like that last part because I've talked to so many people and they have it in their mind, I can't retire today because I'm not ready to let go of these 50 clients or these 10 clients. And it's like, why not just hold on to the 10 clients and sell everybody else? And you watch a light bulb go off and they're like, never thought of that. And we've seen them do it. So they divide it up into like this A list, B list, and C list. And immediately they sell the C list, which is all the spinnets and the bad uprights, all those. It doesn't sell for very much. But their B list clients, those are actually good clients. But their A list clients, those are the ones they hold on to until the very end. But anyway, before we wrap things up, let's talk about a few points of application. For the most part, the thing you can do, the best thing that you can do is to anticipate the transition as far in advance as you are able. We mentioned earlier the 3 to 5 year timeline. This is ideal. It's going to take time. And obviously, if you don't have that long, anticipate it with as much time as you have.
Next, prepare your customers. If you prepare your customers by telling them, in 5 years, I'm going to retire, and I promise you that I will do everything I can to leave you in good hands. Now, for the next 5 years, you keep them updated every time you see them. By the time you're ready to sell your business, your customers will be poised and eager to meet the person that you anoint. Additionally, if someone tells you, oh, why should I pay for your clients? I'll just wait until you retire, and then everybody will come to me anyway. Well, you can counter with, actually, for the past 5 years, I've conditioned all my clients to only trust the person that I choose. So if you're not that guy, good luck. So all your planning is to no avail if your customers are not anticipating your transition years in advance.
Time is the thing that is most important of all. So we've mentioned again, 3 to 5 years is good, but 5 years is better. You will never regret starting this process early, but you will regret waiting until the last minute. Selling during a health crisis while the vultures are circling is only slightly better than selling to an obituary hunter.
Build something worth selling. So for all you young business owners out there, listen up. You need to run your business like you're putting it up for sale tomorrow, even if you don't intend to. You'll make better business decisions. You'll keep better records. You'll always be prepared for the unexpected. Today's the day to start building something that will sell. Tomorrow is too late. Don't let your future be the casualty of poor planning. You have an incredible asset sitting in your hands. Most piano technicians didn't sell their business for much because they wait until it is too late to start their transition planning. So while we transition to Q&A, Luke's going to sort through the questions, and I'm going to show on the screen here a list of upcoming webinars that are coming soon. So we're going to be covering every topic you can imagine related to building and running a piano service business, like I said in the beginning. And the team at Gazelle are excited to help you find the tools you need to save your time and wow your customers so that you can focus on growing your business and doing what you enjoy most, both now and in retirement.
Before we jump into the Q&A, Luke, did you post that link during the formula, the valuation topic for everybody in the chat channel?
I did not. I will do it
I
right now.
completely forgot to tell you to post that when we were talking about that. So if you could go ahead and post that into the chat channel right now. To everybody who's watching, I know you probably have a lot of questions. We're going to answer as many, we'll be here for the next 10 minutes or so. But we have a guide for you to retiring and selling and valuing your business. And so this guide, it's got a ton of information in there. This is something you can print off, you can hold on to. And so Luke's going to post that into the chat channel now so you can download it, and it will be available for downloading later. And then we're going to go over to Luke quick and do some of the Q&A.
Yeah, all right. Q&A has been very busy during this, so we've got a fair bit to go here.
Right.
And we could probably go overtime if we need to. People can always duck out if they need to leave early. So
real quick too, if we don't get to the Q&A to your question, we are going to answer every question. So we just might end up, shooting you an email later. So keep that in mind. All right, let's go. Okay,
first, Tim, how do you approach other technicians to buy their business?
Yeah, I'm assuming this is like somebody's looking at it and, just saying, okay, well, there's this person in my city that I want to buy the business from. It looks like they're retiring. They're not doing anything about it right now. Like, how do I approach them?
Yeah, I think that's
how I'll answer the question. You want to be careful because you don't want to come across as, overly eager, rude, or anything like that. Obviously, build a friendship with them. But also you need to let them know that you are interested. And it's just a quick conversation that says, hey, listen, I'm building my business. I don't know when you've thought about retiring, but when you are, would you make me your first phone call? I'm really interested in possibly helping to position myself to be ready for that. And if you phrase it the right way, it'll trigger something in their head. And if you do it the right way, it'll also trigger them to start thinking about it now. So that a year from now, they come back to you and say, I've been thinking about this. And what exactly did you have in mind? And then that's going to open the door. That's how I would approach it. Just very casually drop the idea of it years in advance.
And I would add that if you don't have a technician in mind, but you're just looking to buy a business in a particular area, then doing things like contacting regional guilds or just getting the word out that you're looking to buy, you might find somebody come out of the woodwork and say, well, it's funny, I was looking to sell. So put the word out.
Okay, great. Thank you. So when you guys were on the slide, how do I value my business? On the profitability section, we got hit with a bunch of questions, 4 questions on that one slide. So these are all going to be related to that. So someone asked for an example of profitability. What does that look like? Can you give an example of profitability?
Yeah. I'll jump in this, and then George, you can jump in. Honestly, it's as simple as any money that you leave in the bank. If you can't leave money in the bank, you're not profitable. And so, your business makes a certain amount of money. It needs to spend a certain amount of money to exist. It needs to spend a certain amount of money to hire the technician to show up. Whatever money's left, that's profit. Because if somebody is going to buy your business and hire another piano technician, they are never going to see those dollars. Sure, it's going to benefit the person they hire, but they're never going to see those dollars. And so you have to make sure that there's dollars over there for them to benefit from. George, you're shaking your head.
Yes. Well, and I think one of the things, if you haven't had a chance to watch our Pricing Your Services webinar, we actually talk about a profitability formula in that, where we talk about a quick way to get an idea of what you need to be profitable. And I believe we're going to be doing a webinar specifically on this topic as well.
Yep.
Okay, great. Also, what do you consider a fair wage to pay yourself?
As a piano technician or as the business owner?
He didn't specify, so maybe both.
Okay. As much as possible.
He said
the boss,
piano,
right?
he said as a piano tech. He clarified in chat. He says as a piano tech.
As a piano tech. This is a big topic that we're going to end up covering in a future webinar, but we'll try to give the short version of it now. Piano technicians need to make a fair wage because you would never take a job if you weren't being paid a fair wage. Piano technicians are also highly skilled labor. And so highly skilled labor typically earns more than minimum wage, more than, I mean, think along the lines of a welder, a plumber, and things like that. So I'm just going to put those two things out there. You should probably be excited about that job and whatever you're paying. And it should probably track with that of like a plumber or a welder or another skilled tradesman. Just by virtue of the fact it's going to take 3 to 5 years of their time to actually get good. George, did you have something you wanted to add there?
No, I'm looking at the chat and saw that the question was if you were referencing hourly wages and then multiplying those by the hours you spend by year. And I think the answer there, that does make sense.
Okay, yeah. I mean, at that point, there is a finite number of hours in a year.
Right.
I can only service so many pianos before I go mad or I destroy my body. And so you have to look at, well, how many hours, how many pianos can they reasonably do? And then that's where the pricing webinar really is important, because if you're not priced properly, well, I don't care how much you pay your technician, you're never going to be able to pay them enough. And so you have to make sure that you're priced properly to start with. I want to talk more about this, but I'm not going to, because this is something we've got planned in depth for a future webinar. So if you have more specific questions on that, maybe email our team and we'll try to answer that in more specificity.
And yeah, I would like to clarify too, a lot of this was covered in the pricing webinar.
Yeah.
I think they mentioned that, and you can get to that at growwithgazelle.com/school. And over on the right-hand side is a link to watch the pricing webinar. So that should help. All right, so still on that same slide, we had another question. Is the value always profitability times 3, or does it depend on how established or large a business is? What are the various factors?
So I think the answer to that really goes back to what Tim said, right? This idea that the value, again, is in the eye of the buyer. So you can have an idea, but for the buyer, it really is about how quickly they want to get their return on investment. So that value times 3, we get that by the idea that they're going to want to spend 3 years to get that return. And it's going to take your profit by 3 to equal 3 years worth of return. Tim, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's not always just profit times X3. You could make an argument that profit times 5X is a better valuation for your company. Right. But the moment you do that, you better be prepared to sit down and give me a really good argument on why you're wanting me to pay a premium for your business. And I'm immediately just going to say, okay, hold on. You want me to pay 5X profit for your business. That's going to take me 5 years to recoup the cost. What am I missing? And if you say, well, I just signed a contract that's going to add $100,000 a year to my revenue, well, then I say, okay, well, great. Is that contract transferable? Okay, let's work that, right? There might have been something I missed. But if you're just sitting there saying, like, I've got really great soft assets, then you need to give me a list a mile long of every soft asset you have. And you need to convince me that because you have everything, it's increasing the value proposition. And at that point, I might look at it and go, you know what? I'm okay with a 5X valuation because in year 6, I make twice as much as I would have in a 3-year evaluation, right? And so I might look at all that and go, nah, it makes sense. But you're going to have to work harder as a seller if you start moving off of that 3X profit range.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the final question on that slide is, how do you think that selling a piano business will change in 4 to 5 years versus selling one today? Is this going to change over time?
Yeah, that is definitely a great question. Yeah, George, do you want to jump that?
Yeah, no, I would say definitely. And I'll be modest here, but I'll say that I think that that's part of what Gazelle is doing, right? Because what I've seen, and the reason why I came onto Gazelle, is I'm watching as piano techs are getting more organized, and it's making their businesses more profitable. And it's actually making the transition from one buyer, from a seller to a buyer, much smoother. So I think guys who never thought about actually selling their business, I've had these conversations, guys who thought I'll never sell my business are going, wait a minute, maybe my wife's right. Maybe I could sell this, you know? So it's, I think you're seeing going to be a shift in the next 5 years. And it's going to be that there's going to be some more shifting from one hand to another from guys you never thought would sell.
Yeah. I'm going to take that from a different angle, just from a cultural standpoint.
Yeah.
We have this whole millennial generation coming up, and they are really primed for the gig economy. And the gig economy, that's a whole different idea. But piano service is perfect for the gig economy. Mm-hmm. Because I can piece and fit piano service in and around a lot of different things as you know, being my own boss, as being a business owner. And I think that, you know, what I said earlier, there's a lot of great piano technicians out there. Nobody's just told them this is a really great and lucrative career path. And if you like these three, if this is what you're like as a person, and you like to set your internal bar high, and you like people, and you like music, right, this could be a great career path. I think what we're going to find is there are a lot of people in the future who are going to buy piano service businesses who don't even know they want to be a piano technician today. And so it's not just that, you know, there's this glut of older technicians that are approaching in the next 5 to 10 years. There's a lot of people approaching retirement. And like George said, now they're starting to realize it's actually possible to sell my business. I don't need to work myself into the ground. Let me start planning to do that in the next 5 years. So I think we're both going to see more businesses offered for sale, and we're going to see a whole different demographic of buyers come up. And what those businesses sell for, how quickly they sell, where they sell for, I have no clue. All we know is that Gazelle's on the front line of this, and we're starting to get hit more and more and more and more and more and more with people saying, I'm 10 years away from retirement. I want to start thinking about selling my business in 2029. What do I need to do today to get there? And that's what these Gazelle School of Businesses are all about. So I think that you're going to see those shifts start to happen.
All right. Moving on to a different topic. Is there a profit sharing option for selling a business? For example, cash payment plus 20% of gross sales over the next 3 years or something like that?
Yes, there is. I was trying to see if George was going to jump that.
I mean, the simple answer is yes, right? And I think that's the creatively thinking about how to sell your business is between you and the buyer. And so, yeah, I think if you go out looking for, I'm only going to sell it in this way, you've really shrunk the number of buyers you can work with. So think about the many different ways you might be comfortable with and the kind of risk you're willing to take. Because if you sell it and they tank it, there goes your profit sharing. But if you sell it to the right buyer and they grow it, then you might be really thrilled with what you made a decision on.
Yeah. I will say that if you are going to make the purchase price of your business contingent upon the future performance of whoever buys the business, exactly, you definitely want to do some homework here. All right. You don't just take their word for it. You need to evaluate their business acumen. You need to look at their track record. You need to stare them in the eye and say, okay, that's a great idea. Tell me, when have you done this in the past? How did it work? How long did it take? You know, what was the revenue 3 years from now? And odds are they might not be able to answer those questions, and they're going to back off and go, okay, hold on. You know, all right, let me think about this. You're going to realize pretty quick, maybe I don't need to, it wouldn't be wise to trust you. But, you know, other people, you look at them and you go, you know what? I actually think you're going to go build a business that is 5x my revenue or 10x my revenue. I never had that vision, but this guy does. Or this gal does. And I think she's going to actually go take this and build something, and she's going to use my client base to actually leverage into that instead of taking 20 years to spin that up. So I think that, like George said, yeah, it's in the value is in the eye of the buyer. But if you can swing a deal like that and you're comfortable with the person you're buying, go for it.
Okay, great. Thanks. We had a couple of Gazelle-related questions come through in a private chat. So let me ask those both right here real quick. How do I get all the revenue data for my business? Is that something Gazelle tracks? can I get that in Gazelle? And I guess you could probably make that more generic if you're not using Gazelle.
Yes. Well, a couple of things here. Yes, you can get it out of Gazelle if you are using Gazelle's invoicing feature. So if you're using Gazelle's invoicing feature, you just go to settings and export all your past invoices, and then you can use the spreadsheet to dice that out into, per year, and, do some nice graphs and things like that. Ultimately, though, the hire an accountant piece of this, QuickBooks and real accounting programs are much better because you're going to get the profit and loss. You're going to get the balance sheet. You're going to get the sinking funds and the different accounts that you're doing to help fund different expenditures. You're going to get all of the actual reporting that goes into that, and it's going to be done in the right way by a professional accountant. And so, yes, you can get it from Gazelle, but definitely consider that accountant at that point because there are better programs than Gazelle to do all of those reportings. We are working on reporting in Gazelle, but that is a huge project, and it's not going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months. So what was the second question, Luke?
If I buy a business from someone that's using Gazelle, can I merge the two accounts?
Yes. Simply, yes, you can. That's something that you would, with a couple of signatures between both owner and buyer, we'd be able to make that happen.
Yeah, we have a couple of just legal requirements. Like, you can't just call us up and say, hey, this company over here said I was buying their business. Go ahead and give me their data. No, we have to have a legal request, a formal request from the owner of that company first before. And then, we treat it like an import. We figure out which company you're going to keep. We have a whole process and questions we'll ask to make it easy. But ultimately, it takes you about 10 minutes to answer the questions, and then it takes us about 5 minutes to pull all the triggers and make sure everything goes over the way you want. So it's a really, really easy process.
10 minutes if it's Luke.
Yeah, okay. Maybe the questions are more challenging, so yeah.
Who thought it was a good idea to have George in here?
I don't know.
All right, we've got another question here. Is there a formula to put a value on a business when you have staff and multiple techs?
Yes. It's two things. It is both more complicated and equally as simple. Mm-hmm. What we said earlier about if it's more complicated than just grade school math, you're trying to overcomplicate it. Boil the entire business down to profitability and human resources. I am selling you a profitable business that's branded, that has training materials, that has multiple technicians, and I actually have agreements from these technicians to carry on with you for at least 12 months after the sale of the business. As the business owner, it gets a little trickier. Because imagine if you were working for a company where the business owner was thinking about selling and you're not sure who the new boss is going to be. Right? You might be lining up something else just in case you need to bail really fast because the whole culture of the company changes and all this other stuff. So as a business owner, there's a lot of this happens like years in advance. You don't even tell the employees, right? You're just building this great organization, this great culture. And then at some point you need to tell them, hey guys, listen, I've decided that in 2 years I'm going to sell the business. I know there's going to be some angst and transitions that happen, but here's the deal. I'm actually going to be giving each of you a % of the sale price.
Yes.
I'm going to be negotiating for a really high sale price. I just want to know I'm going to take care of you on the other end. And I give you my word, I'm going to do my best to make sure that whoever comes in has vision, meets the culture, and wants to do something equally great. George, I'll let you add.
No, I think that you nailed it really, Tim. I think the only thing I'd add is thinking about those as soft assets, right? How much training has gone in there? How much years, how loyal are they to the family, to the company, right? And is that loyalty going to translate with the company if they continue on? Those are all things that you can list as soft assets. So they can increase value, but like Tim said, I think transparency across the board is always useful. And there's nothing worse than being an employee and suddenly poof, the company's been sold out from under you. And you can feel really hurt by that. So managing all the angles so that the new buyer doesn't suddenly find that everybody's quit.
Yep. As the buyer, if you are looking to buy one of these businesses and the owner's not being transparent, he's like, no, I'm not telling them anything. I'm just going to sell it and they'll figure it out. Walk away. Yeah. Because there is a high likelihood that you're going to buy the business and then everybody quits the next day, right, and you're left with the bag. You're going, what just happened? You don't want to be in that situation. And so there was something else I was going to say to that, but I can't remember.
I'm sure it was brilliant.
Yeah, I'm sure it was brilliant. Yes. All right. Ask another question, Luke.
All right. How would you determine how much that a client list is worth? Active clients, inactive clients, how would you break them out? How much would you value them for? Just the client list, I think, is what he's asking.
Just the hard asset of the data.
Yeah, I think that's what he's asking.
Okay. George, I'll jump here.
Yeah, go ahead, because I'm...
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Not much.
No.
I mean, that's my first. I think that's what you're sitting over there thinking. Like, if I put myself in your shoes and you wanted to sell me just a bunch of data. I mean, it depends on how many.
And how good that data is.
Yes.
How well kept it is.
Yeah. Is it clean data? Are there email addresses? Are there phone numbers? As a piano technician, I would go look at the piano list. I would make a judgment call that the Yamaha grands, the Steinway grands, the nice grands and all that, they're probably good. The really nice uprights are good. So I'm going to value those people a little bit more. And inactive clients, forget it. I'm not going to bank on them. Any spin it, I don't really want those. But this is the buyer. The buyer's going, maybe this is a young kid, right? So those are soft assets, though. So it's kind of hard to say, if you're just saying, here's the data, here's a shoebox, here's whatever, I don't think you're going to get much. I typically see these sell for $500, $1,000, $1,200, $1,000 plus $20 on each appointment.
Yeah, because what you're ultimately selling and what you're ultimately buying is a marketing list.
Yeah.
Right? And you might be just as easy to go down to the local piano shop and ask them, would you be willing to sell me your list of buyers for the last 5 years? They shouldn't give you that. But like, you're really just buying a marketing list. And there are places that collect up information that you might be able to buy a list of just people who say they own a piano. And you won't get the exact information of where it's just not worth that much. Which is why we focused on buying the business. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you also have to consider the legal ramifications of buying that list. If you live in Europe with the GDPR laws, right, you're legally not allowed to market to that list unless there was more of a formal purchasing of the business. You might get into a lot of trouble. If you live in Canada with the Castle spam laws, anti-spam laws, just buying that list and then reaching out to the people could land you with tens of thousands of dollars of fines. Thankfully, in the US, we're still not to those points yet, but just consider what would happen if you had nothing else and some new technician emailed you saying, hey, I took over Jim's business. You're going, who are you? So I'm not going to sink much money in that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Got another one here. If your name is in the business name, can you sell your customers without selling your name?
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah. If I could rephrase what I just heard, I want to give you all my customers and then strip the identity of what they recognize.
Yeah, and I'll say, what I'm also hearing is a real concern that once I sell my name, which is attached to this business, it'll be used in a way that I don't agree with or I dislike.
Yeah.
And what I would say is that's where your lawyer is going to come into play here, right? Is you're going to, if you sell a business with your name attached, then you can put stipulations on how that name is used. Now, your buyer is not necessarily going to like that unless you have vetted your buyers, you've done the things that we've talked about, you've qualified them, you found somebody with integrity, and you can both feel comfortable that they're going to hold it to the level that you feel comfortable with. them using your name. If you know that you do not want to sell your name with that company, then perhaps one of the things you need to be considering as you get ready to sell in the next 5 years, 10 years, is maybe it's time to take your name out of your company and rebrand and let your customers know we're still here, we're still the same people, we're just changing our name so that when you do get ready to sell, you don't have that question.
Yeah, and this is where time is so important. Because if you told me, hey, my name's in the company name, but I'm going to sell in 5 years, I'd say not a problem. In the next 12 months, rebrand. You have 4 years to build under the new brand. And then, 2 years after you rebranded, you start finding the buyer. That's not a problem at all. We solved it. The other thing, I'll tell you, I bought a business from a gentleman where his name was very much part of the identity of that company. I not only asked for the legal right to use his name into perpetuity, I asked for the legal right to use his image, his picture, and the story we both crafted together was part of the deal, because I needed for a long period of time his clients to recognize this is still this guy. And as a buyer, that was, if he hadn't have given me that, I would have walked away, because his business, I got nothing. I got a list of clients who don't know the new identity of whatever this is. And so rebrand if you're really concerned about that.
Okay, thanks. Got a few more questions here. Someone says, I think someone in my city might be interested in selling their business. I don't want to seem rude, but I don't think that they know that I'd be willing to buy their business. What should I do?
This is kind of like that first question. I've forgotten how that first one was phrased. But honestly, honesty.
Yeah.
Just go up to them and say, listen, I'm trying to build my career. It looks like you're winding your career down in the next 5 years. Throw it out in the future. Yeah. Just say, listen, I would love to buy your business in the next 5 years, next 10 years. Consider me one of the people who's willing to pay the most for your business. And when you're ready to start talking, I'm here. George, it looks like.
I think one of the things I heard also was that they weren't interested in buying it. Is that right, Luke?
They were interested in buying, but they didn't know. I think someone is interested in selling their business, and they didn't know how to approach them without seeming rude. Yeah,
then I think yeah, that's what Tim said is right on. And I think we covered that one a little bit earlier as well.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we're hearing this right. The seller is interested in selling. They don't know if the buyer is interested in buying, or is it the other way around?
The buyer thinks that someone might be interested in selling, but is not sure and doesn't want to.
Okay.
Doesn't know how to approach them.
Yeah, you just need more clarity. Just be polite. Take them out to lunch. Talk to them, and get the conversation rolling.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, what do I do if I buy a client list from someone who is priced way below what I charge?
Ooh, that's a good one.
You probably need to think about why you're buying that business. Because this is a great point where I would, again, plug our pricing or services webinar. Because what you're doing is you're buying a list of clients who may actually not be within your tribe. So you might be a business that works with one type of customer, and you've bought a list that in the end are all people who are going to walk away from you. And I think to understand whether or not you should buy somebody who's priced much lower than you, again, I would go to that pricing or services and ask yourself if that is a good client list for what you are currently serving.
I'm going to take issue with that, George.
Go ahead.
Because just because they're priced lower than you doesn't mean nobody's going to do business with you.
That's true, but go ahead.
If you insist on the higher price, not everybody will. You could also grandfather these people in. Again, ask, right, like George said, why am I buying this?
Yes.
The price differential matters here. If I am 5 times more expensive, that's one thing. But if I'm only 30% more expensive, that's another, right? So maybe I could still make money at the lower price, just not as much. Mm-hmm. in that case, I'm fine grandfathering people, and I'm going to get them to give me some great reviews, and I'm going to get paid in ways other than cash. And so grandfathering is probably a tool that you want to explore. You really need the seller to talk up why your skills are better, because you're pricing yourself as the better technician. That's going to be a little bit hard, because you have this guy who's retiring or this gal who's retiring, and they've been doing a great job, and everybody thinks they're an amazing technician. And then at the end of their career, you want them to say, oh, by the way, I was never the best technician. I found somebody better. Might not happen. So you need to finagle the story. The story that you tell here is really important. It's the story that the technician tells his clients. It's the story the clients tell potential clients about who you are. And it's the story they tell their friends. And you need to craft that story and work that story so there's a storyline as to why you're buying this business. And you probably need to esteem and honor the seller. Again, this is one of those businesses I bought. I never talked bad about the seller. And I basically said, hey, everybody's grandfather, nothing's changed except the name. And then I leveraged off of that and built an amazing business with a great team of people in that city. So I got it to work that way. I'm not scared of that.
And I want to reiterate something you just said, Tim, which I think is really important. And what you said was why you're buying that business. And I think that that's an important stopping point, right? When you're getting ready to do something like this, ask yourself as a buyer, why am I doing this? Am I moving into a new area? Do I look to expand? And what am I hoping to accomplish by taking this step? And that'll help you answer that question like you just said, Tim.
Okay, we have one final question, and I think that's it. I have a website that doesn't list on the first page of Google. How much time should I invest on trying to get this to the first page before selling, or should I just invest in online reviews?
Yeah, I would start with online reviews, no doubt. That's more straightforward. It's a stronger soft asset. SEO work, search engine optimization, all the work you do to get onto page 1 of Google, that comes and goes with the wind. I mean, you could be on page 1 one day, and if all you have is SEO, you're gone the next. That's a real soft asset. So I would certainly invest in online reviews. And time. How much time? Are we talking 5 years? Because if you have 5 years, I would certainly put some time into SEO. And then consider if that's a soft asset that you need. You might have enough soft assets to say you don't need to worry with that. Is there something you want to add to that, George?
No, I think that's exactly what I would have said.
Okay.
Definitely your reviews tomorrow I could build myself onto the first page of Google pretty quickly, but I can't build myself the number of 5-star reviews that you did in the last year. That's a better soft asset.
All right. Well, that's all the questions that we had. You guys want to close this out?
Yeah. Hey, everybody, thanks for coming. Those are some great questions, great discussion. Feel free to reach out to the team at Gazelle. George is your personal business coach.
Yes, I am.
I hired him to be a personal business coach to the industry. And we are really benefiting from all that he is offering our team right now, because he is really spearheading these webinars and putting them together and helping us to put this asset together for the service industry, so that we can help you save time and wow your customers. So thanks for coming.
Thanks, everybody.